Before starting, as usual, do not forget to like, as well as subscribe to my YouTube. Well, we begin an anime, which begins with how the main character of Kafka with a detachment of cleaners remove the remnants of one of the monsters, which are called Kaiju. In the evening, Kafka sees a news report, according to which it is reported that Kaiju was killed by Mina Asher and her combat detachment called 3rd Division. The next day, a brand new, namely Ichikawa, appears in a detachment of cleaners. He got here to then get into the detachment of defense forces, that is, to fight with Kaiju. Kafka in his youth tried to get there many times because it was his childhood dream, but he could not pass the entrance exams. Now he can no longer participate in the selection because now he is 32, which means he is too old. Ichikawa noted that Kafka was very upset due to the fact that he had abandoned his dream, and it is clear that he still wants to get there. Therefore, after spending all day at work together, Ichikawa said that this year, people under 33 years old could get into the detachment, which means that Kafka has another chance. Immediately after that, they are attacked by a network. Kafka asks Ichikawa to run and call for help, but he himself began to distract Kaiju. During the escape, Kafka recalls that when he was a child, he was friends with Minnow, and when Kaiju attacked their city, they promised each other to enter into defense forces. As a result, Minnow was still able to pass exams and join the detachment, as well as get the position of the leading 3rd Division. At this time, Kafka was wounded by Satellite, but Ichikawa saved him from his death, hitting Kaiju with a road sign. After a couple of minutes, the 3rd Division arrives at the place, which kills Satellite. Hit already at night, Kafka and Ichikawa are in the hospital, but at that moment, a flying creature that crawls into his mouth attacks the show. Because of this creature, Kafka turns into Kaiju, and one of the patients reports about it. Ichikawa helps Kafka to escape, but this means that now he will not be able to fall into defense forces, because if someone finds out that he is a Kaiju, he will be killed right away. Having escaped to the city, Kafka felt another Kaiju, the same one that attacked them during the day. This Kaiju was already ready to eat a girl and her mother, but Kafka manages to save them. He asks Ichikawa to take care of people, and he attacks Kaiju himself and kills him. Soon the forces of defense arrive at the place, and from this girl, they learn about Kaiju, who killed another monster. Thus, information about Kaiju number 8 appeared in the news. This is the first Kaiju in history that the defense forces were never caught, even though the fact that all the forces of Japan were allocated to his searches. After 3 months, the selection began in the detachment of defense forces, and Kafka, along with Ichikawa, was able to go through the first stage. All these months, Kafka tried to become normal, but he did not succeed, and so that he would not be revealed, he is not going to use his strength to pass the exams. The second stage began, at which the physical training and suitability of the fighters for the service is checked. Even despite the fact that Kafka has been in good physical shape all these years, age makes itself felt, and it was extremely difficult for him to pass this part of the exam. Ichikawa also notes that this year all selection participants are especially strong. But even among them, the Kaiju stands out, because she is in the first place for 16 years. However, according to Ichikawa, they still have a chance, because according to rumors in the final test, they check the knowledge of Kaiju biology, as well as the ability to cut them. Therefore, they will have an advantage, because they were cleaners. The final part of the exam is conducted by Hosen, that is, the deputy commander of the 3rd Division. The exam will be carried out at the training ground, where the main task is to kill Kaiju. For this, participants are given special costumes. These costumes are made of Kaiju organics, and they are used to increase the physical characteristics of the fighter. Before starting the test, all participants measure combat potential. In Ichikawa, it turns out to be 8%, which is considered quite good, because even the trained fighters have an average of 20%. However, the combat potential of Kaiju is 46%, which is comparable to the level of the mine, which means that it is the strongest fighter on the selection. The latter, who measured the combat potential, turned out to be a Kafka, and he had 0%. Although it was believed that there are simply no fighters with 0 potential. Nevertheless, they were all allowed to the battle at the training ground, where there are 36 satellites and 1 cardinal. Kaiju immediately breaks forward and kills a couple of satellites. At the same time, thanks to his great experience, Kafka recognized one of the satellites and stunned him with a grenade, and then told where he had a weak place. After the murder of Kaiju, Kafka and Chikawa ran to the next, but at that moment Telet attacked the Telet and broke his leg. Due to the hopeless situation, the examiners wanted to turn on the shield to him, but this would mean his disqualification. However, he is saved by Kiker, saying that no one will die while she is on the battlefield. Immediately after that, she goes to search for a cardinal to finish the test. Despite serious injuries, Kafka decides to continue the test, sitting on the shoulders of Ichikawa. However, she had already done all the work to Kiker, having killed the cardinal on her own. The test was declared finished, and all participants were told to return to the base. But at that moment, another Kaiju, who attacks the Kokora, crawls out from under the cardinal. He turns out to be so strong that he was able to hit her with a shot, and in addition, he forced all the killed Kaiju to begin to regenerate. In addition, he turns out to be the first Kaiju to have a mind, and is able to speak. The cardinal restored after this began to possess incredible power. He attacked Kiker and was ready to kill her. However, the rest of the Kaiju, Kafka saved her, taking a blow to herself. Immediately after this, Kafka killed him and asked Kiker not to tell anyone about his secret. Soon the 3rd Division arrived at the scene, but did not find anyone there. Kusina understands that the Kokora is strong, but not so much as to completely break the Kaiju and leave the crater in his place. However, when she was personally asked about this, she decided not to give out the cavation and said that she had killed the monster. Already at night, a reasonable Kaiju by news learns about Kaiju No. 8, after which he acquires the appearance of a person he eats. The next day, the results of the exam became known, and Kafka was among the adopted fighters. However, they accepted him not to the position of the officer, but to the position of the cadet. Moreover, initially they did not want to accept it at all. But Hosina believes that there is a connection between someone from the detachment and what happened on the test. After all, when Kaiju began to come to life, two powerful special energy specialists were recorded, and one of the costumes temporarily stopped working. Later, Kiko asks the Kavki about what exactly happened yesterday. And having learned the truth, he says to keep it a secret, because if they find out about it, they will either kill him or will begin to put experiments. Moreover, the numbers are assigned only to the strongest Kaiju, and parts of their bodies go to the development of weapons. Later at night, the city was attacked by a new Kaiju. The Mines detachment are going to do the Cardinal, while the Hosen squad must restrain the satellites he created. -1 members of the detachment successfully dealt with the satellites, but Kafka could not fight them. Despite the fact that thanks to training, he was able to turn Zero into a unit, he still lacked combat potential for the full use of weapons. In this case, he began to study the corpse of Satellite. Thanks to this, he was able to find out where they have the core and informed Hosen about it. Meanwhile, the Cardinal entered the zone of the defeat of the Gun Mini, and a couple of shots, she was able to destroy him. However, their mission does not end there, because even more satellites appeared from his corpse, which also needs to be dealt with. During the cleansing, Ichikawa and his partner Ihara separated from the main group, but returning to the others, they stumbled upon a reasonable Kaiju, the very one that was in the final exam. He immediately attacked and wounded Ihara. Ichikawa decided to call other fighters to the rescue, but Kaiju, with the help of his barrier, was able to cut off the entire area from the outside world. Realizing his position, Ichikawa attacked him and asked Ihara to flee and call for help. At first, Ichikawa managed to fight Kaiju well, but during the battle, it turned out that Kaiju was actually capable of more. Another attack by the monster could kill Ichikawa, but at the last moment he saved him returning to Ihara. He returned because he envies Ichikawa, who, thanks to battles and training, was able to increase his combat potential, while Ihara himself was stuck by 20%. Already together they managed to injure Kaiju, but he was able to escape, hiding in the corpses of the satellites from where he struck Ichikawa. Immediately after that, Kaiju stunned him to take him with him. Next, he was ready to kill Ihara, but from his death he saved Kafka, demolishing his head. However, this did not kill him, and Kaiju in response began to attack Kafka. These attacks did not particularly affect the Kavation, and he was able to cause serious damage to him. Kafka was going to finish him off, but several fighters appeared on the street, which took advantage of Kaiju to escape. But before hiding, he said that he was able to appreciate the forces of the Kavki for this battle, and the next time he would definitely kill him. Having left alone with the fighters, Kafka escaped from them. That's just Hosen found him. He considered that this Kafka attacked Ichikawa and Ihara, and therefore immediately rushes at him. Unlike a Min, Kosen has a weak combat potential with distant weapons, but when the neighbor was a neighbor, his potential reaches 92%. Of course, Kafka did not fight him and instead tried to escape, but Hosen began to pursue him. As a result, he managed to catch up with him and almost deliver a blow to the nucleus, but Kafka managed to repel the attack and knocking out a weapon he was hiding. After that, Hosen informs the mind that Kaiju No. 8 is most likely Grand Kaiju. In addition, for all these months, the 8th did not harm any person. Moreover, the whole battle with him was extremely strange because there was a feeling that he was not fighting with Kaiju, but with an ordinary person. After that, other participants in the operation reported that the attacker of Ichikov and Haru Kaiju was the same as in the final part of the exam, so he was assigned No. 9. Then at Hosen's banquet, it reports that due to the fact that Kafka found a weak place in Satellite, the damage from the attack was minimal, as a result of which he was raised to the officer. At night of the same day, the Cardinal's flying Kaiju were attacked by the base. The forces of the entire base were thrown into a battle with them, but Hosen noticed that Kaiju was attacked only to the base, without touching the city. Immediately after this, Kafka informed him that these monsters are called Kaiju, and that they always attack one by one, and not a whole flock, as it is now. This means that there was someone who subjugated them to himself, and this someone turned out to be Kaiju number 10. He was also defined as Grand Kaiju, and he came here to absorb the strongest fighter at the base. The day before, Mina went to the main headquarters to personally transmit information about 8 and 9 Kaiju. And this means that only Hosen can fight with 10. Meanwhile, the rest of the fighters began to fight with Poder Kaiju, but even having received information about their weak places to refuse, Kavas, there was another problem. These Kaiju could work in the team and cover each other. However, Kekker came to the aid to the fighters, who had his own personal weapon. Usually only captains receive such weapons by the type of mines and Kosen, but this time they decided to make an exception, since Kaiju became much stronger, and with the help of her, the fighters were able to provide worthy resistance to monsters. Meanwhile, Hosen continues to fight with the 10th, as a result of which he was able to cut him strongly and find where Kaiju has a core. However, at this moment, Kaiju was transformed and increased greatly in size. This size, Kosen is no longer able to cope with Kaiju. Moreover, Kaiju begins to attack him. Kosen tried to attack the 10th from the back, but Kaiju was able to notice him and throw him into the wall. Thanks to the barrier in the suit, he was able to survive and continue to attack the 10th, but as a result was still captured by him. Realizing the situation, Kafka was going to turn into Kaiju to intervene and save Hosen. But Mina managed to return to the base. She was able to injure the 10th, but the shot was not fatal because she did not hit the core. Then Kosen, along with Kiker, was able to immobilize him, injuring his leg, while the rest of the detachment did not stop shelling Kadea. Thanks to this, he could not completely restore the wound and Mina was able to kill him. It seemed that it all ended, but until the last no one noticed that at that time a Kaiju bomb appeared in the sky, which was about to explode. The alleged explosion will be so powerful that it can destroy the entire base. And understanding this, Kafka turned into a Kaiju and collecting all the strength, he was able to push the bomb. Thanks to him, everyone from below remained alive, but the division still had to arrest him. Upon learning about this, the headquarters ordered to deliver Kaiju number 8 to them. However, going into a car where there were no wires and cameras, Nina said that no one in the division considers him an enemy. Moreover, she is engaged in the collection of witnesses to protect him, and will also write a report on his achievements and the benefits brought. Having delivered Thieling to the base, the father of Kiker, the commander-in-chief of ISAW, says that the cavity was discovered at the X-array, which means he is exactly Kaiju, and therefore it needs to be destroyed. That is why the ISAW himself wanted to deal with the swing. By ignoring the words of the daughter that he saved her and the whole 3rd Division, ISAW shoots at the Cavation, saying that if he were a man, he would have died. Going to kill him, ISAW puts on a costume and takes his weapon made from the flesh of Kaiju No. 2.Kavka was about to dodge, trying to get ISAW out of strength, but he did not know that ISAW was a stronger fighter. Feeling incredible power, Kafka begins to understand that the settlement of ISAW is comparable to Grand Kaiju. This is all due to the fact that Kaiju No. 2 was incredibly strong, and Isiv was the only one who was able to subjugate his power to himself. Having received a lot of blows, Kafka suddenly felt that he did not control his body and Kaiju himself immediately began to transform into a stronger form. Now, instead of a Cav the commander, Kaiju will fight, and Kafka cannot interfere with this. In this state, Kaiju was able to hurt Isa very much, after which the monster continued his transformation in a stronger shape. And no matter how much Kafka did not try to interfere with this, he could not do anything. The situation was also destroyed by the fact that Kiker watched this battle, which was very painful from the fact that the person who saved her life and became a good friend tries to kill her father. However, to the last she believes in the humanity of the Kavki, and he is trying to reach him with all his might. This bunker is the most durable on the basis, only even he barely withstands the fight, and I saw, which is actually not surprising, because roughly speaking, numbered Kaiju fights. This battle is also interesting in that, if Isa really wanted to kill the Kavki, he would have done it from the very beginning. That is, with this battle, he gives Kafka a chance to prove his humanity. What the Kavki has big problems with, because Kaiju inside him almost completely absorbed him, after which he was about to kill Isa. However, at the last moment, Kafka was able to take control of his body and hurt himself very much so as not to kill Isa. Nevertheless, the commanders did not particularly appreciate this duel, and everyone decided to execute it as one. Even a mind that reported to the headquarters that the Kafka was actually good could not convince them. In addition, if people find out that Kaiju got into the ranks of the detachment, then there will be a panic among them, because then they will begin to suspect that any neighbor can turn out to be Kaiju. So, the last word remains for Isa, who decided to give a Kafka a chance. The latest events with Kaiju attacks are a very bad bell, and if right now the numbered Kaiju attacks them, then they will not be able to do anything, and therefore, according to him, Kafka is their hope, which they want to use as a powerful weapon. And let the Kavas decide to save his life, he still needs to prove to humanity that he is not an enemy, but he will have to prove quite soon, because the 9th Kaiju is preparing his new attack on the headquarters. Be that as it may, the information about the pardon of the Kavki sent out the 3rd Division, which the guys were immensely happy, because for all these months of joint work they greatly loved him. Well, what will happen next we will find out in the 2nd season, the video about which will be released someday tomorrow. Do not forget to put likes and subscribe to my YouTube and Telegram channels, but see you in the next video.